New York.
Apple.
Hot dogs.
Dollar.
Hollywood.
Democracy.
Freedom. Rock and roll. Wall Street.
Statue of Liberty.
Los Angeles, California.
McDonald's.
Jeans.
Bubblegum. Video games. Nintendo.
What's so great about America?
Every Saturday night, 7 to 9 p.m., explore American culture and language.
With MasterSteve,
Ina MK,
And HazvaQT.
tune in to find out about what makes America so great.
The Great American Weekend. Listen exclusively on Radio Van 103.1.
Also, watch us on the Radio Von Facebook page, website, and mobile app.
Hello and welcome to the Great American Weekend. I'm your host, HazvaQT. And this is my co-host, MasterSteve. Why are you so confused?
You sound a little different.
We have
you
a
sound
stranger in the room.
Oh, that's
Hazva,
right.
you sound a little different this week. What's going on?
Propagandistic Espion is in the house.
Is that in honor of the new studio? We're back in the new studio this
Okay,
week.
dear listeners, this is the same Great American Weekend show, English language show on Radio Van 103.1, and we're here, three of us, still same.
In our brand new studio.
Oh, yes, and we're excited.
Ina MK, HazvaQT.
And
MasterSteve.
And we're excited because we have an exclusive show tonight, and we have exclusive guests. And not only one, but whole 6 of them. Woo.
Yeah. Who do we have in the studio with us tonight?
We've got the Dave Geodakian sextet.
Geodakyan.
Geodakyan. Well, see, that all depends
That's
on...
an Armenian thing.
I mean, it's G-E-O. Just like geography.
We are ready for a slang
Geodakyan.
lesson, I think. So tonight we're going to talk about jazz. More jazz, a lot of jazz, everything about jazz. And these guys are the real jazz thing right here in our new studio.
What's up, fellas? Hey.
Hey, guys.
Give a wave.
Nice to see you here
I am
in the
super
studio.
excited about this.
Hope that you're feeling okay. And for those of you who are watching us online, you can also tune in on our frequency 103.1 and also download our application and listen to Radio Van anywhere around the globe. So
before we listen to the wonderful sounds of the Dave Geodakian,
there you go.
I have to learn how to pronounce things in Armenian.
We said it right.
Sextet. Let me run down a few slang terms revolving around jazz. So the first, slang and just general terms. First one that I want to do is swing. Swing first is a genre of music, a genre of jazz music.
And it's a form of dance.
Yes, and it's a form of dance that usually goes along with
the music.
Music. And if you have never heard swing before, think of Benny Goodman or Glenn Miller. And if you've never heard Benny Goodman and Glenn Miller,
Love those guys.
I feel sorry for you. Get on the internet, look it up, and listen to some of their stuff.
Now?
Go home and listen.
Okay,
go do your homework. Don't come back until you've listened to a bunch of Benny Goodman and Glenn Miller.
Okay, slowly.
You can
I'm
also tell
down.
people. Okay. You can also tell people to swing it, which usually means to play it fast, to play it hard when it comes to music, right?
Kind of like that, right?
And that's kind of where the swing came from. It was kind of faster, more energetic music than what came before it. But you can also put a swing into it. And this is when you play music and you don't necessarily stick to a real strict rhythm, like a metronome. You kind of make some beats a little bit longer, a little bit shorter. It's not playing sloppy, but it's putting an emphasis into it. I mean, the band here, they're smiling and nodding.
This guy's
I think I've got it right.
I think you're touching a chord.
Yeah.
Hey.
So to jam in like all instrumental music, all music is just to play things that you haven't necessarily written or rehearsed.
Jam session.
Okay, a jam session is when a bunch of musicians get together who aren't necessarily used to playing together and they don't have a set list prepared, and they sit down and they play and they improvise and
Hey,
it's-
Master Steve,
yeah.
isn't it a jam eating session?
Jam is that's something else. That's something you put on bread.
Musical
Okay.
preserves.
Like
What else?
Okay. To blow.
This is my favorite.
blow.
This is my favorite slang. This is like, can you just say that again? I don't
No.
know what's that word.
We're sticking
we're
sticking to its meaning within like music
Musical
and
context.
and jazz. Okay, it's
So-
got another meaning. I'm not gonna. You can go there all you want.
To blow.
Yeah. Well, in jazz,
You
when you
can
say
also
somebody
go home.
really blows, right? They're playing well. They're playing hard, especially the horn players, trumpet, saxophone, and whatever. Outside of jazz terminology, outside of that area, if you tell somebody they blow, you're insulting them.
I've
So
also
be aware of your audience when you use that word.
I've heard another similar word to that slang word, which is like to wail or wail in it.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like
Yeah,
someone
yeah.
who's
He really wails.
really putting that effort with the breath into what they're playing, or really like putting the licks in on the guitar.
Yeah. Then you've got the theme, which a song usually starts out with the theme, and it's kind of the melody or the most memorable part of the song, kind of a hook. And in jazz, you start out with a theme, and then you move on to solos. And so a solo is when one of the instrumentalists is playing something on their own, and a lot of times it's improvised. Sometimes the rhythm section, say the drums and the bass, will be playing along with behind the soloist who's playing the solo, but the main instrument is the person who's playing the solo, whether it's the guitar or the saxophone or the trumpet or the keyboard, the piano. All right. Improvisation is to play something that you haven't planned or written out beforehand, kind of making it
a
up.
synonym for jam.
Well,
Jamming.
no. I mean, kind of. But I mean, jam is like a larger thing. Like you can have a show where you're just jamming.
Yeah.
Or a jam session.
You could
Improvisation is more like I've got a solo and I didn't write it out or didn't write the whole thing out beforehand. I start with what I usually play for this solo, and then I go on and I'm just do something that maybe I've never done before for the rest of it.
Yeah.
Okay. A lick.
You get an A+, I think.
I
They're-
love these. I love
They're
these
just
words.
being
licks,
polite.
Licks
They're
and
just
blows.
being
This
polite.
is like
How much time do we have left? We got a little bit of time.
1 minute.
1 minute. Okay.
1 minute for the licks and blows.
We've got
do you need
horns. Horns.
water? No, don't say that.
Horns would be like any wind instrument in jazz. A tenor would be a tenor saxophone, or an alto is an alto saxophone. You've got the keys, which would be the keyboard or the piano, the skins, the drums. Let's see.
And we've got an advertisement
And we've got an
coming up.
advertisement break.
Can I just make a short poem real quick?
Here, he does that
here,
again.
ready?
This
With
guy has to
licks
not
and,
behave
licks and
every time.
licks and blows on skin whilst chopping skins.
Okay, we just need to go to
scat.
we just need to go to commercial right now.
Stay tuned. This is the Great American Weekend, and we have amazing guests to perform later during the show. We'll be back.
Come and hang with us every weekend. It'll be a blast.
A blast?
Yeah, a good time.
No, come chill with us. It'd be cool.
Chill?
Yeah, relax, hang out.
Come chill with the fat with us.
Yuck! No way! Join us!
On the Great American Weekend, where we'll help you decode American slang.
to the great American weekend. Today?
Steve, who is that?
I think we've been infiltrated by a Russian radio host.
Learn about American politics on the Great American Weekend. think
Oh my
we're
God.
enjoying
Oh my God.
a free jazz concert
Oh my God.
exclusively for 3 of us.
I am just blown away. I'm blown away. That was
Bravo.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful. I'm gonna give you a round of applause. That's for sure.
I'm sitting here thinking, and this is work for me
Hashtag
today.
proud.
You know, and if it wasn't work, I'd be sitting here with a glass of whiskey and just enjoying this even more, if that's possible.
You could, by the way.
Yeah. So much.
Where's the
gratitude.
waiter? bring me some whiskey.
Thank you so much for that lovely performance. That was
Thank you.
just exceptional.
That's
really.
great.
Thank you, guys. Amazing. Thank you. I
We're
think
gonna-
I kind of forgot where I am.
We're gonna chat with Dave
Yeah.
a little bit now.
Oh,
So
can't wait.
Dave, upright bass player or double bass as they call it here most of the time, electric bass, band leader, conductor of the Spendarian Music School Jazz Orchestra,
Also composer.
composer. But I mean, you're so talented.
And good guy.
You're
And
so
a good guy.
talented. What else do you do?
Well, I sleep sometimes. Sometimes I try to eat, and that's mostly it is.
Great. I want to ask you about the 2 pieces that you guys have played today.
The first piece was my composition. It was called On the Run, but don't ask me why.
Okay.
And the second one was called Happiness, is by our keyboard player Arman Asatryan. And let me please introduce these wonderful musicians.
Yes.
Arman Mnatsakanyan on drums, Areg on guitar, David Melkonyan alto saxophone, Daniel Melkonyan trumpet, Arman Asatryan piano and keyboards.
Thank you.
Woo.
Thank you guys for
Bravo.
the invitation.
Really, I'm really impressed, guys. It's really fantastic.
But we have prepared plenty of questions for you. Are you guys ready? Are you ready, Dave?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dave, how did you get into jazz music? Like, what's your first memory, or what's the first thing that made you think, I want to do that?
Well, it's really a difficult question because when I was a little kid, I was studying the piano, and I really hated it because I was a stupid little kid. And after the graduation, I promised my family and myself that I won't be continuing as a musician. But,
So you did what? You did the 7 years of music school, or?
Yeah, 7 years of music school and another 7 years of not music.
Okay.
So then I started to play electric bass. I was into rock music heavily, but suddenly
I can't imagine it. I can't picture it right now looking at you.
Really, I had really long hair, and so I still love rock music.
I
It's-
still
it's
have
great.
long hair.
Well,
So you
So
really,
do
you
I.
really do rock. You really do rock.
well, sometimes. And after that, I heard something. It was I think it was a bossa nova tune by Antonio Jobim, and I fell into that. So it had really interesting harmonic structure, and I just kind of went into the jazz theory first, then into music actually, and so something like that.
Okay.
So thank you, Dave.
What's your favorite genre of jazz? Or is that a
Jazz.
bad question? Jazz.
Jazz.
So,
And music. And music.
well, what's your favorite genre
That's
of
too
music?
simple.
Music.
Music.
Really?
I love that. I love that.
I really hate questions like that. Sorry.
Okay, I have a question to all of you. May I? Who would you guys want to collaborate with? Any musician, dead or living, doesn't matter. Do you guys have a
Question
dream?
to me or
To everyone.
let me think.
Who's taking the first turn?
Well,
I'd love to
Anybody?
collaborate with Herbie Hancock. That's my personal. That's
They
my
don't- They don't want to collaborate
Watermelon
with
Man.
anyone.
I would want to make a Watermelon Man 2. You know.
okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Maybe Quincy Jones.
Quincy Jones. Yeah, I
I
got
don't know why.
the bossa nova vibe from
not
Antonio
only. He has
Antonio Carlos
really-
Jobim. Yeah, I could
he
feel
has
that.
Plenty of great stuff except from that.
I could feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how would you classify the type of music that you guys are playing on our show here today?
Music.
Music. Oh, okay. And I'm going to keep asking these questions, and your answer is just going to keep being music.
To be honest, how this sextet started, we were playing for years together with different kinds of bands and together too on jam sessions, and we played mostly jazz standards. And I really had this idea for years to start something like this and play original music. That it's not jazz.
Okay.
It's music, really.
Okay.
Maybe we think we improvise with using the jazz language, but I don't like to classify.
Okay.
Dave, quickly, this one's for you. Off the top of your head, top 3 influences, just stream of consciousness, go.
And right after you is my turn.
Stream of consciousness, go.
Beatles, Stravinsky,
and Bordeaux.
Mingus?
Yeah, no.
Mingus?
No. Beatles, Stravinsky, Coltrane.
Coltrane.
Thank you. Yeah, you guys, since jazz is about improvising, right here on air, I decided to improvise here. So we would like to kindly ask you to play one more song, so then we can let our guy go, because we know that one of the musicians
is kind of late. So
yes, please.
Yeah. So please, now.
Yes, please.
Musicians in this city are busy people.
Assumed by Daniel.
Okay.
We didn't really. Have you decided with the name? Okay, it has no name. This tune.
So no name. No name is the name.
No name is not the name.
Is this a premiere?
No.
Okay.
So the name of the song is
unnamed original.
No, hold on. The name of the song is
song by Daniel Melkonyan. So maybe you will guys help us with the name.
Okay,
cool.
maybe later we'll brainstorm.
Oh, cool.
But
I like
right
that.
now,
Improv.
let's go.
All right.
Let's do it.
Daniel Melkonyan's song. Oh my God, again and again. Oh my God.
Exclusive concert for the Great American Weekend. Dave Geodakian, sextet, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
It was a
Thank
real
you guys.
treat.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And we're ready to continue with our interview. So, the next question to our guest would be, when did you decide that jazz is what you need? Music.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah. How old were you?
perhaps
3 months old?
no, perhaps 18 or something.
Wow.
I just wanted to say 2 minutes ago. That's why I was looking at my watch. But maybe since I was 18 or something.
Wow.
Wow, since 18.
And how did that happen?
I just suddenly woke up, and well, I'm making it up, but I don't know. I really don't know.
Is there something in your background, like perhaps like either of your parents that was very much into music, or maybe like a relative or a very close friend that was in music?
I actually come from a musical family because my mother is a piano teacher, and my grandparents from both sides were musicians.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah,
so
so
it's kind of in the family generationally.
Yeah.
This is wonderful. This is really great to know.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I have another question. If you had one message to give to the world through music, and you would know that it would get to the point, what would it be?
Have fun.
A question to all of the team.
Well, I say have fun, but...
Anything else? Anybody else?
Enjoy music. I heard that. I'm okay with everything as a great message. Is a great message.
So,
does that always happen? You say something, everybody agrees?
Well, not all the time. A band is like a family. You cannot agree with everything. But that's the point.
There are so many different families.
Yeah.
So many different bands.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Dave, what do you think the influence of like the internet and technology, like especially recording technology, has had on music?
Well, I think technology that we have now is making our lives much more easier than it was a couple of years ago. And I don't want to talk about 10 years ago. You have to be on the track with that. How can I say that? Because, well, let's not forget how people would record 70 years ago, record music. Now you can do basically everything. You can sit at home and play anything that you like and record it, mix it, and you didn't have all that 20 years ago, 30 years ago. It can help you a lot, but let's not forget about the music content. Well, if you have the right content, you can basically do everything with the technology.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so it's, I suppose, yeah, somebody who's multi-talented, like, say, Prince, right?
Yeah.
Who would sit down and he would record an entire song by himself. And that sort of thing has become much easier and actually within the grasp of almost the average person these days. Whereas even when he was doing it, you had to be a millionaire to have a setup to be able to do that. So yeah, I suppose, like you said, if you have the vision, if you have that, you can do everything yourself. But then you were saying too about, well, it's a band. I mean, you guys are a band. Do you lose something if you do everything yourself? I mean, what do you gain from like the tension or the arguments of a band?
Well, we don't really have arguments, to be honest, really.
Okay.
And
oh man, that's half the fun.
well, we'll try to have more arguments. But you know, I think the music gets better every time that you disagree on some things. We try to play the same tunes each time differently. It's my personal approach, and I think all the guys would agree that you have to find something, and it takes time.
We're ready to have fun, and we're always ready for another advertisement break. Stay tuned. This is the Great American Weekend with our great and fun guests, Dave Geodakian and his great family.
The sextet.
We'll be back.
Hey Steve, do you like Chash Harissa and Spas?
Yeah, I love them. But what would you call them in English?
Yeah, I'd call them cowfoot stew, chicken porridge, and sour yogurt soup.
Sorry I asked.
The Great American Weekend.
We're back. We're back with our guests. Some of them left us. That was such
Musicians in this city are very, very busy people.
Yeah.
And they've always got another gig to run off to. So we are very fortunate and thankful that, you know, they all found the time to come in and sit with us today, play us some wonderful tunes.
Oh my God, that was such a phenomenal performance. Thank you so much,
Thank
David.
you,
Really,
guys.
you and your
Thank you.
sextet are really just phenomenal musicians. And
No, the guys are. The sextet is.
yes,
not
I
me.
mean, yeah. Well, you know, you with them. I think the whole group. There's a
Far
great
too
energy.
modest. Far too modest.
There's a great energy between you guys.
The bigger a person is, the more modest they are. I think that's
I think-
one of my observations.
I'm thinking like 20 years from now, 30 years from now, we're going to be thinking of you as the Mingus of Armenian jazz.
Whoa! Wow, that's such a high compliment.
Yeah, thank you. I don't think so, but thank you.
You are a great composer and a great musician and a great band leader.
Thank you.
Hey Dave, if I have a weird question, if your soul had a color, what would it be?
My soul had a color.
Music.
Perhaps orange.
Orange.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I've always liked the orange color since I was a little kid. Really, I cannot explain how or why, but I think orange.
Oh, wonderful! Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a holy color in many religions, in Buddhism, in Hinduism. So it's kind of like this golden giving light color.
Well, perhaps
That's cool.
Music and art is for that purpose.
Spirituality and
Mostly
creativity.
For me.
Huh.
And yeah, orange. Let's go with that.
Very cool.
What do you guys think is the future of music? I mean, where is it going? You guys are playing what most people would categorize as jazz. You know, although you keep saying it's just music. I love that. But I mean, where do you think music
jazz.
is? Yeah.
But tonight we played something different.
Okay, okay.
I cannot explain what
So,
it is.
What do you think is the future of music or the future of maybe jazz? Because people have always said, you know, well, jazz is dead. After avant-garde, freeform, free jazz, I mean, it kind of fell apart and then it turned into fusion. And now where is jazz? And then where is music too? I mean, music, rock is dead, people say. Well, rock and roll is dead. Well, I don't know. You know, and you've got hip hop and rap. I mean, where do you see the future of music going?
Both of you, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
Well, I guess as long as the planet is living, jazz is going to live. So as long as planet is living, humanity is living, jazz is going to live. So that's my opinion.
But where does it go? What does it do?
Huh?
Where does it go? What does it do? I mean, swing, bebop, modal,
Yeah, just
avant-garde.
It's a message of honesty. I think to be honest to yourself first of all, to not lie to yourself, and I guess that's.
So
it.
you just, so if you play sincerely, it's jazz.
Well, I think living is jazz.
Living.
Every single thing
And
that
jazz
you're
is
doing during
living.
your day is jazz, and jazz is living. Yeah.
I have a follow-up question to your answer. There's a lot of talk about what you had mentioned about technology assisting in the availability of multiple different instruments. And now with a lot of investment into algorithms and artificial intelligence, there's this huge influx of jobs that are being taken over by robotic working and replacement of factory workers and such. And a major influence has been put on creatives as being the future thinkers and the future inheritors of people who will have real work, those that have the ability to creatively problem solve. How do you see that as the role for musicians in the future evolving landscape of the role of musicians and creatives? Both of you. As long as the world is living, jazz will live, yes.
In my opinion, you had a problem with the beginning of the music recording, because you had 120 years from now, you had musicians playing live music mostly everywhere. And when people started to record the music, many places were closed for musicians. They were just playing records. And basically it's the same thing happening now. For example, with technology, you had to be really great performer 40 years ago to try and record in the studio. Now you can be a very bad performer and record music at your place and make it sound great.
Yeah, and touch it up and make it sound great.
It's basically the same thing that went on a century ago, more than a century ago. And we have a different kind of problem with the technology thing, I think.
Well, I guess, yeah, I'm totally agree with what he mentioned, but I guess the old fashion is gonna be back. So maybe it's my dream.
The old fashion's gonna be back.
Yeah, because I guess some time ago, sometime later, you really need to be good to do something and to introduce yourself to people. I mean, and I'm hopefully it's gonna be like.
You know, it's so funny you say that the old fashion's gonna be back because the like vinyl records.
That's it exactly.
Vinyl
it's
is
like
back, really.
We're gonna talk about
They are
vinyl
very
records a
popular
little bit
now.
later.
Yeah. So it's interesting you mentioned that. I'm glad that you did. But I think that we're running out of time for this segment. So thank you so much for you guys being here. Really, it was such a pleasure, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Really, just an inspiring performance by David Geodakian and his jazz sextet.
And we hope that this wasn't the last one.
We hope to.
Okay, let's continue with our interview.
We're going to continue with the interview.
Okay.
Each musician has a special, relationship with their instrument. What kind of relationship do you guys have?
We adore each other. We love each other.
Oh.
So now, is yours? Would you classify
drums,
this as an instrument or instruments?
I guess instrument. It's a personality. It's about she's a person. Yeah.
Does she ever get jealous?
Huh?
Does she ever get jealous?
Ever get jazz?
Jealous.
Jealous? Oh. I'm not sure about that because she's my sister actually now. So that kind of relations, yeah.
I don't know why I say that. Yeah. 'Cause I didn't mention that she's a lady too. Don't tell my wife.
If you're having disagreements with your band members during working process, how do you solve them?
Maybe by talking with them, but we with this sextet we really don't have any creative differences because the purpose of this group was to play openly, to play free music, and to try out some things. I'm trying out my tunes, guys are trying out their tunes. We are trying out how can we play this one. We can play a tune different in one concert than another just to try how will it sound better. So that's why we really don't have any disagreements, because we're just now in the trying out mood.
So to a certain extent, this sextet is a songwriting laboratory where you kind of test your stuff out.
In some cases, yes.
Okay. Cool.
It sounds like there's a lot of experimentation, play, and what really intrigues me is that when you give that space for someone to share their own creative input and then hybridize it with some element that you might have, a melody, a theme, a lick. It sounds like, for example, the essence of jazz.
Has a very beautiful ballad. And we had recorded it previously, just a trio. Arman was on the vibraphones, me on bass, and our friend Karen on piano. It sounded different, and then we suddenly realized that why don't we play that tune with our sextet? We tried it, unfortunately just once, and we'll try it again definitely. And it sounded totally different. But after playing once, I think we realized that we can change some things there and there. So it's basically a laboratory kind of thing.
Cool.
If your name had if your band had another name, what would it be?
Whoa. Never thought of that.
This is the right time to do that.
Yeah. Well, in jazz, the bands not usually have names. If I organize this, it's called Dave Geodakian or something. Or if Arman organizes tomorrow a new thing with the same kind of band, it will be called Arman Mnatsakanyan Sextet or something like that. And I never really thought of a name. Well, it's the right time. So
why do you think that is? That in jazz the bands don't really have names; they just take the name of the band leader.
Because it's all about music, I guess.
I like that answer.
I don't know. My guess would be that typically jazz musicians play with a bunch of different bands, and that like with rock, with a rock band, you've got your band, and you play with your band, and you're trying to make it big with them, and that's it. You're set. You're locked into that group at least for a while. With jazz, I mean, even this sextet, has it always been the same 6 musicians? Yeah. It has. Okay, which
and it always stays
the same.
We
okay.
either play sextet or we don't play at all.
Okay. But I mean, yeah, with jazz, a lot of times members move in and out, and because I think with jazz music, each musician has their own kind of flavor, style, color, if you will, that when new people come in and out, it does change the groove. I mean, you look at just kind of the golden age, what I think of the golden age of jazz, from kind of Miles Davis's Kind of Blue through to Coltrane's later stuff, maybe some of Wayne Shorter's stuff. That, I mean, these guys were all playing together. I remember how stunned I was when I first realized that that's John Coltrane playing saxophone on Kind of Blue. And it always sounded familiar. But then you sit down and you look at the liner notes one day and you're like, dude, that is... It doesn't sound like Coltrane. That is Coltrane. I was like 19 when I hit that. I was like, oh my gosh. And then you start looking into it and it's like, oh, wow, this is amazing.
Hey guys, I have an idea. Hey Steve, are you showing something? Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, I was just, and this was one, because, one of my favorite, I've got my vinyls, and these are just my old ones, vinyls. Right? And it's kind of...
Bird and Diz.
Yeah, Bird and Diz. So this is one, I mean, Charlie Bird Parker and Dizzy Gillespie, and this is like a classic of bebop, right? And so I had got this on CD because I was looking, dude, these guys are both great, and I saw one with them playing together. I was like, I gotta have it, and I got it on CD, right? And listened to it a lot. It's a great one. So when I started getting records again, I went online and I found an old. That's not an original, but it's a pressing from probably it's a pressing from like the 1970s. And then again, more recently, I think it was last spring, I started looking again, I think Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie probably have some other albums. And I wonder,
love the design of these things. I really love the feel of these albums. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking and I found this one. The Quintet. Jazz at Massey Hall. Okay, he's billed as Charlie Chan, but it's Charlie Parker.
Yeah, because he had a contract.
He had a contract with another record label and whatever, yeah. Dizzy Gillespie, Bud Powell, Max Roach, and Charles Mingus. Yeah. I heard about this, and I was like, oh my. And they played like 2 shows together, that's it. And then they never played together again. And fortunately, somebody recorded one of them, right? So I went and
can't get over the design.
I went and found this. I went and found this online and started listening to it. And then I went back to the U.S. In August of last year and walked into a record store and was looking at used records, and this was there. And I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh. And they have these boxes in the record stores, used record stores, where these are just things that have just come in and we just kind of put a price on them and we're going to sell them. But then later they go through and they sort it and they maybe look online and find out, well, how much can we actually get for this? So this was in that bin, like new arrivals. And I got this for, I think, like $4.
Nice.
And if I would have been there like 3 weeks later and found it, it probably would have been like 20, you know? So I was like, oh man. The quintet, you know, Dizzy Gillespie, Bud Powell, Max Roach, Charles Mingus, and Charlie Chan Parker.
All
live.
together.
Guys, we're ready for a break. And before we do that, I'd like to thank you once again for being with us.
Thank you once again for having us.
Thank you.
Seems like it could be a long-lasting conversation.
So we can go have a drink after this.
Yeah.
Hey, that
but
sounds like a great
unfortunately-
idea.
Plans today?
To the bar.
Yeah.
From the quintet to the sextet, huh?
Yeah.
Thank you once
Just
again.
one step.
Just one more. Yeah.
One more.
We'll be back. The Great American Weekend.
So then I tell the bartender, no, you keep the change.
Guys, I don't get it.
Ina, it's an American thing.
Learn more about American humor on the Great American Weekend.
Welcome back to the Great American Weekend here on Radio Von 103.1 FM.
And we are really improvising tonight. And yeah, sometimes it happens that we don't get it or we don't get each other, but everything can be fixed, right?
Well, in the end, everything works out, doesn't it?
So, boys, what's your offer
So, I mean, we
for the
started.
discussion?
I pulled out some of my vinyls that I brought today.
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago, you know, I've got some older
I'm
kids.
just going to show the
and
previous,
they,
just so that people can
and people were bugging me about, oh, you know, you got to get a record player because vinyl, man, vinyl sounds so good. Music sounds so good on vinyl. And all over the world, in Europe, in the U.S., even here now, there's a record store here.
Yeah.
Vinyl is making a
good
comeback. And at first, when I started hearing about all this, I was like, oh, yeah, whatever. You know, I mean, it has its own sound, right? Vinyl has its own sound and its own feel, but I wasn't, you know, thinking, oh, it sounds so much better
love it.
than a CD or an MP3. I mean, of course, there's always quality issues. I mean, there are some records that sound horrible, and there are some MP3s that sound great,
Yeah,
right?
but they do sound real.
Yeah, my vinyl record player really sounds totally different. Even though it's playing on digital speakers, it sounds totally different than any MP3 that I play. There's like a warmth to the feeling. It's almost like something that is tangible and analog being vibrating towards you as closer to a musician playing than if you were to listen on a digitalized computer. And I know that sounds strange, and it might just be like a superstition in terms of the auditory experience, but there's something warmer about vinyl that I feel.
Yeah, I mean, there is something to the analog sound. When you digitize something, you're breaking it up into binary code. I mean, zeros and ones.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be, I believe, there's always going to be something that's lost. Something that has to be shaved away or cut away because it doesn't fit into that on or off encoding.
Yeah.
I remember during the Soviet times, in my family when I was little, it was such a big deal finding and buying new vinyls, and you had to look for it. There were certain special places where you could buy it. You couldn't buy it everywhere, and especially regarding jazz, we can talk about it later. Like jazz during the Soviet times, that was something unique and special.
So yeah, but I wasn't on board with this whole vinyl revival at first. But then I sat down and I've got a
design.
Yeah.
Look at that Helvetica font on a big. Look at that red. I'm sorry. I'm crazy about the design of these vinyls.
You're such a good advertiser.
What I started doing is I started listening to all of my music on my phone on MP3 by album. So instead of just doing a random playlist or gathering things up, I said, hey, look, I want to listen to Led Zeppelin today. So I'm going to listen to this album from beginning to end in order the way it was originally released. And so I started doing that with everything I was listening to for a couple of months. And that's what got me back into, I think maybe I need a record player.
Yeah.
Because with a record player, you can skip from song
You're
to song.
so right. That is so right.
You can skip from song.
That approach is so awesome. Because
So
what
we
you're
know what
basically
to get
doing
for
is
your
like
birthday.
is getting like the vinyl experience. Yeah, I mean like, oh wait, your birthday just passed though.
We
You're-
never know when it is.
But yeah, my birthday's a national security secret.
The concept though, back to the concept. The concept of listening to something as it's composed from beginning to end and then bridging that with the experience of vinyl, it's really the right approach. I think it's how someone who really listens and appreciates music can get the full experience of what the musician would want for their audience and for their people to listen to. And I appreciate that. I think that's a good way.
Yeah. And so like with a lot of the old jazz stuff, you can buy reissues of these that are brand new, but with a lot of these things, I want to go back and I want to buy old ones. They may sound worse because they're scratched or they're crackly a little bit, but that adds to it because this is probably my favorite jazz album of all time. John Coltrane's Live at Birdland, and you look at this and it's got magic marker written on it.
Wow.
WUWM, and I did a little bit of research. This is apparently the University of Wisconsin Milwaukee.
Oh, nice.
So this was part of a college library at one point. It was part of their collection.
Super cool.
And this again is not an original pressing, but it's a pressing from probably the 70s. So it's old, and it's got that feel. It's got that sound.
Maybe they cost now a lot of money.
I thought
not this one.
I thought
not this one.
I thought on it said "wow," like someone was just so impressed by the album and so much information in such a short amount of time, or like in the music that they were just so impressed. They were just like, wow.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at with CDs, because I grew up with CDs basically.
Me too.
And
what was your first CD album?
Probably Def Leppard's Hysteria.
Can I tell you what mine was?
What?
Animals, insects, and bird sounds. and you know what? My dad would play that. My dad would play that in like 6 a.m. to wake us up to go to Armenian school in New Jersey so that we could study to learn Armenian. And it would be blasting the sounds of bees and the sounds of horses. So yeah, that was
and
you're
waking up thinking, I thought I went to bed in my bedroom, and now I'm waking up in the middle of a field.
We can continue practicing animals and birds and different insects during the advertisement break. You guys stay tuned because we'll be back shortly.
We'll get that out of our system.
Stay tuned.
Hey, where are you off to?
I'm playing soccer.
You lost your sock?
No, I'm playing soccer. What you call football?
No, you don't say soccer. You say football.
Join us on the Great American Weekend and learn about different sports from America and around the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back in the studio discussing jazz and everything connected to it. And we are here really nostalgic because Steven has brought a whole collection and a history along with his vinyls.
Like I was saying, this is one of my favorite jazz albums of all time, Coltrane's Live at Birdland. And I mean, you look at this, with CDs, you still had the box.
Yeah.
You had the disc, and you couldn't scratch the disc.
Yeah.
You couldn't get it dirty. You couldn't scratch it. There was a physicality to it where you had to be careful with it. You had to
delicate.
You had to take care of it. But then there's also the packaging. The leaflet, the booklet that came with it, and that's actually a holdover. I read someplace that for a while they were considering not having the booklet with CDs, just getting rid of it, and you would just have the pictures and the disc. But artists said, well, no. I mean, this is part of the ritual, the physicality of the music.
And that's when everything went plastic, because both the CD was plastic and then the CD case was plastic. Whereas most vinyl record covers were all, I guess vinyl is plastic as
Yeah,
well.
vinyl is plastic.
Or is it
yeah.
wax?
No,
They
that's
call
something.
it, they call it wax.
That's. We won't go there. We'll go there somewhere. We should have an episode just on vinyl records.
Oh wow, that's a great idea.
But I mean,
Oh, wow.
you've got this.
He's got a lot
you
of
know,
vinyls.
the
liner
Coltrane
notes.
live at Birdland here, and it's got, I mean, a whole short essay.
Mm.
I mean, this is longer than some news articles online
It's
these
true.
days. And this was, you know, they would hire somebody serious who was familiar with the music, who was familiar with the artist, who maybe even was there at the recording session to write the liner notes. And you could read the liner notes and learn about how the album came into being.
Yeah.
You know, you could learn things, and then pictures of the artist. I mean, now with MP3s,
Now
I
we have
find
Google.
myself. Well, yeah, I suppose.
Unfortunately.
But I find myself listening to jazz, both new and old, and I'll be like, oh, you know, I wonder who was playing piano on that record, or who was playing, you know, it's a Miles Davis album. Who's the saxophone player? It isn't Coltrane because I don't recognize it, you know. And you have to go to Google to look it up, you know. Back in the day, you know, and that phrase "back in the day," like back when this was real, when this was happening. Back in the day,
when you had to work hard to get an information.
back in the day, you would just open up the record sleeve or the CD case and look.
And I think that, you know, I see where you're going with this, Steve, because, I mean, if you think about it, there is the music itself on vinyl record. There's the design of the vinyl record itself. Then there is some literature that's
It
involved.
does look
in
like
it.
a book.
There's some literature that's involved with it. So you're talking about art, you're talking about literature, you're talking about music, all within one space.
I mean, even if you don't want to call it,
Poetry,
even if
not
you don't want to
including the
call
lyrics,
it,
you know?
well, yeah, I think the Beatles with Sgt. Pepper's were the first ones to
whoa.
put the lyrics inside. But yeah, I mean, it's
I see
music
it
journalism inside.
As a book
I have
cover,
to acknowledge the
I
very
see
large
this as a
box
book
that's in your
color
hand right now,
cover.
because there's something that looks really serious in your hand right now.
I see it in continuation to what you said. I see this as a book color, and the content is the music.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Thank you.
And this is, I know I posted about it on our page way back when we were first getting started.
Cool.
This is Wayne Shorter's box set album, Emanon. And it just came out last fall. And it came out only in physical release at first. So I got this delivered to me here in Armenia sometime, I think it was in November. And it was not available. It was available on record. It was available on CD. It was not available digitally.
Wow.
Until I think it was January or February.
Who did you bribe to get this?
So, Onyx.
It's rare to have that these days. Musicians not releasing digitally.
Yeah, they purposely didn't release it digitally because they wanted people to actually have the physicality of it. And it's three discs, okay? And, you know, I mean, there's some nice color and everything on it.
Are the discs colored
No,
too?
the discs are not colored. They're just plain black vinyl, but they do such incredible things. I know
I've seen like neon color.
Yeah, I've got a new issue of the Graduate soundtrack, Simon and
color?
Garfunkel for the movie, and the disc itself is this wavy blue.
Oh, cool.
So it looks like the water for a pool, which if
Nice.
you've ever seen the movie The Graduate, that's
Creative.
so cool, right?
I've got
and
a
this
Curtis
one,
Mayfield album that's clear red. Clear red. Yeah. The re-release of, I think Curtis.
And so this, Emanon, which actually backwards it's No Name, and that's on purpose.
Emanon, No Name.
And I don't have it.
Nice.
I don't have it, but it comes with a graphic novel. They had a famous, and I forget the name of the person who did the illustrations of the graphic novel, but then Wayne Shorter, you know, world famous saxophone player, tenor saxophone player who used to play with the greats, you know, Miles Davis and those guys. He co-wrote the text for it. And it's an interesting graphic novel. It's got a nice message to it. But Wayne Shorter was trying to get that physicality back with the music. And it's funny, I actually had Dave over when I first listen to this. I waited until I could have somebody over to listen to it.
Wow.
The first time. So I had this for a couple of months almost before I ever opened it and listened to it. And then I had another friend of mine over a few weeks after that and to listen to it. He's another jazz musician in town here. And he borrowed the graphic novel, and I haven't gotten it back from him yet.
Wow, Steven is so full of jazz. Master Steve.
You're so full of jazz.
I'm so full of jazz. I'm full of lots of other things.
Isn't this a nice transition for the quotes?
Yeah.
You guys are ready?
Ina,
Oh, I love your quotes so much.
lay them on us.
Okay.
Let's
Let's do it. Jazz stands for freedom. It's supposed to be the voice of freedom. Get out there and improvise and take chances and don't be a perfectionist. Leave that to the classical musicians. Dave Brubeck.
Dave Brubeck.
Another one. One thing that sticks in my mind is that jazz means freedom and openness. It's a music that, although it developed out of the African American experience, speaks more about the human experience than the experience of a particular people. Herbie Hancock.
Yeah, when the evidence for that it speaks to the experience of kind of everyone, it speaks to the human experiences. Jazz is really everywhere.
Yeah.
There are great African jazz musicians from Africa. I'm not talking about African Americans, but great African jazz musicians. Mm-hmm. Japanese. I just picked up a vinyl. It was a reissue of this Japanese pianist playing jazz music. And dude, I was listening to it and I was like, that sounds like Mulhouse. But he's Japanese.
Don't tell him.
No, it's great stuff. It's
Well,
and
I'm
I was just
joking.
like, wow, So the way that jazz was kind of picked up all over the place. It's an American thing, but it was big in the Soviet Union. It's big in Africa, Latin America, Asia. It's kind of gone all over the place.
And it's interesting how very simultaneous that thing that went all over the place happened. Like, it was almost like as soon as for like a year jazz was playing around in like New York, maybe in New Orleans, the soldiers that are camped out somewhere else kind of brought with them some records that were recorded, and then they would play it in another area around the world, and then that would catch on in those places and would kind of spread. So anyway. So yeah, it's cool stuff. I only know because when you said African jazz player, I was like, oh, Mulatu Estatke is like one of my favorite Ethiopian jazz players. So that immediately popped up in my head, and you just listen to it, and it's like, it's jazz, but it's something else because it's like Japanese jazz. I'm sure it has this Japanese hint to it. So
actually, this album didn't. He was a self-taught pianist.
Guys, what I want to say?
Another quote?
The discussions during the quotes are is my favorite part of the quotes, actually. And discussion, I think, is the jazz of the quotes.
That's yeah. I like that. The improv.
A quote by the quote
The improv
reader.
discussions. I like that. Yeah. That's cool, Daddy.
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
real
let's
hip.
move to the
That's
next
real
one.
hip, lady.
Because soon we're going to have a music break. So, jazz is the big brother of the blues. If a guy's playing blues like we play, he's in high school. When he starts playing jazz, it's like going on to college, to a school of higher learning. B.B. King, by the way.
B.B. King. Kind of the inventor of the electric blues.
Another one, and that's the soulful thing about playing. You offer something to somebody. You don't know if they like it, but you offer it. Wynton Marsalis.
Wynton Marsalis.
Marsalis.
He's one of the premier trumpet players out there right now.
Very classic.
Kind of very classic, kind of from the old guard, traditional school, but he's very, very good.
Yeah.
From New Orleans.
By the way, we have another quote by him. And just a second.
Yeah, Wynton Marsalis, jazz is democracy in music.
In music. There you go. And
I like that.
It really is. And
I think this last one ties into what you were just saying about conversation.
Yeah. Let me see what I wrote here. Jazz shows us how to find a groove with other people, how to hold on to it, and how to develop it.
That's Wynton Marsalis again, eh?
Mm-hmm.
I like that one. I like that one a lot. How to develop a groove.
I guess jazz motivates people to be more out of the box. Teaches us.
Well, yeah, and that's something that jazz musicians are always pushing for, to do something new, to find something new. One of my favorite jazz musicians is John Coltrane, and he was always trying to push himself.
It's kind of controversial. I mean, it's opposite of classic music, but that doesn't make classic music boring or bad. You know, I mean, I don't mean it saying it in a negative.
Well, yeah, classical music is totally different. It's composed, it's metered, it's right. You know, there's a lot of organization that has gone into the arrangement of all the different instruments. Whereas with jazz, some of the quotes, if you kind of like pick the word ether out of what you've read, it's about freedom. It's about free flow. It's about being in the moment. It's about inspiration at the present time, and then using that to improvise and really feel other people around you that are playing, because otherwise when you're in this classical situation, there's a lot of composition. There might be big band jazz groups where there's a lot of practice that goes involved and planning ahead of time, but that space of jazz really feels like this open experimental play, and that's kind of what Dave was speaking about a little earlier when he was playing for us. So I don't know, I feel like that freedom and that play and that experimentation, the improv, is that area of where jazz exists, and it can be composed, but it also has this ability to be totally free and open, and that's kind of what really makes me fall in love with it, is that it's magic and different every time.
And now we're ready for the magic of Louis Armstrong, Mac the Knife. Stay tuned. We'll be back after the music break.
Oh, say, can you see?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed?
Adamast, what are you doing?
He's trying not to forget where he came from.
Welcome back to the Great American Weekend here on Radio Vaughn.
Tonight we had a really intense, really an evening.
That wasn't intense, that was cool.
No, yeah, I mean in a good way.
That was cool.
Really an evening full of information, full of impressions and emotions. It was great. We have about 20 minutes to go. So we'll later, towards the end of the show, we'll have our calendar of events.
Yeah, and right now, Ina, do you want to fill us in a little bit on because jazz is American music.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one it's one of the uniquely American creations that has kind of taken over the world. It's spread throughout the world. But it's got a long history here in Armenia as well, doesn't it?
Well, I want to start from the Soviet era, actually.
Okay. Well, that would make it a long history.
Yeah.
I mean, for people like us.
Well, it depends on what you compare with.
It's a long ways back, before I was born.
Well, so common Soviet people mostly adored jazz, but the country's leaders didn't always share this love with the people, and generally accepted at first, jazz was soon proclaimed as a symbol of the hated Western world in the USSR. That's a funny expression. Hard to believe, but in the 1920s, the Soviet leadership gave a green light to the popular music of its political opponent. American jazz was not just accepted, but warmly welcomed in the Soviet land. The reason was simple. The Soviet leaders saw jazz as the music of the oppressed Afro-American minority. Music could become another instrument in the political struggle. Well, the history of Soviet jazz began on October 1st, 1922.
I have to go. So basically what you're saying is the reason that the leaders of the Soviet Union embraced jazz is just this very basic Marxist thing. It can help us with class consciousness and help us further the revolution.
Yeah.
Infiltrate America from the roots with working class music.
Talk about it, the use and abuse of art.
You know what kind of a phrase it was popular later when jazz is again banned, because it kept being banned and then being allowed and then banned and then allowed.
And they did that with a lot of things too, because right after the revolution, like Mayakovsky was embraced by the government, wasn't he? And then later he was the real avant-garde poet, Mayakovsky. He apparently was embraced, and then later he was just shut down completely.
I think the author Brodsky was also in Russia and then moved to the United States and kind of abandoned his Soviet past as well. But what was the saying that you wanted to say about this?
During World War II, Soviet jazz music gained some breathing space. After the war, Soviet jazz suffered the hardest period in its history. Today, he plays jazz. Tomorrow he'll betray his country. So that's
wow. Today he'll play jazz. Tomorrow he'll betray his country.
Yeah,
that sounds like such a fantastic Soviet quote that it must be said in a Russian accent.
Okay, go ahead.
Today he will play jazz. Tomorrow he will betray his country and nation.
We need an evil laugh here.
It's like I was hoping like a villainous laugh, but that's like a satanic laugh. Like
yeah.
Yes, betray your evil ways.
Betray your country.
So only in the 1960s.
This is like the best subliminal propaganda from American sponsor telling you like a radio.
No, I'm talking about the Soviets.
That's what we're talking about. MasterSteve.
From now on, he's not Master Steve. He's Master Satan.
Wait, can you please say Master Steve in that voice, please?
I am the root of all evil.
The Groot.
But that sounds good. I mean, you could be doing voiceovers for cartoons, or
you could have a career in radio.
Okay, guys. So only in the 1960s did jazz start to find its feet again, having just recovered its status in the Soviet Union. Jazz was struck again in 1991. So it keeps going on and off. When the whole country fell in crisis, so did jazz. Many artists left Russia. Bands broke up. The crisis ended only in the 2000s. So that's basically a brief introduction.
But yeah, I mean, jazz early on was not really embraced by mainstream American culture because of kind of the wild parties, and a lot of jazz musicians had issues with drugs and alcohol. The list of famous, wonderful jazz musicians that were addicted to heroin is quite extensive. I mean, that's basically what Charlie Parker died from. So in the U.S. even, it was demonized and kind of shunned for, especially by conservatives or by religious people, because of the dancing and the drinking and the drug use and just the way.
Rock is also like that, right?
Rock was as well. I mean, Buddy Holly, when he first started playing rock and roll down in Texas, people were like, hey, that's. I mean.
Okay, we can put it this way: jazz is a freedom, and this temptation, not everyone can handle. Something like that.
Not everyone can handle that responsibility.
Of being free.
Freedom ain't free.
Yes, for some people, freedom is too much. Too much love will kill you. Okay. And so, Master Satan. Yeah.
I'm back.
Yeah. Okay.
Jazz is the greatest musical form, and
that was introduction of the story how jazz started in Yerevan.
Satanic jazz.
Yeah.
Satanic jazz. Is there such a thing?
I don't think so.
Because there's like heavy metal music.
If I could play maybe I would start that up.
Okay, we'll be looking forward to that.
Scooba-dooba-dooba-boy.
I don't have a lot of information of the jazz forming in Armenia, but I have brief information with the names. So Yerevan's first jazz band was formed in 1936 by composer and trumpeter Tsolak Vartazaryan. In 1938, composer Artemi Ayvazyan founded the Armenian State Jazz Orchestra, the first in the Soviet Union. The orchestra's first drummer, Robert Yolchan, became an important artist of Soviet and Armenian jazz, developing his own style over time and continuing to play and give master classes until his death in early 2000s. In 1954, Konstantin Orbelian organized an estrada quintet for Armenian radio. Then Stepan Shakaryan founded the Jazz Sextet Radio, and jazz trios were founded by David Azarian and Artashes Kartalyan. Jazz pianist Levon Malkhasyan, aforementioned
Malkhas, better known as Malkhas.
Yes, founded his jazz trio with Armen Tutunjan, Chico, better known for Chico, and Artur Abrahamyan. In 1998, Malkhas became one of the initiators of the Yerevan International Jazz Festival.
Yeah, I remember. I've known about Malkhas for a long time.
He's a living legend.
Yeah, he's a living legend here. And at one point, I saw a CD by Levon Malkhasyan, and I looked at it and I thought, who is that guy? And he was like, it's Malkhas. I'm like, oh. Malkhas isn't his real name?
Yeah,
I had known him and met him and watched him play many times, and never had I heard anyone refer to him as Levon.
Steven, that's an Armenian thing.
Yeah.
Or Leo.
Malkhas.
I always like renaming these guys. You know, like, all right, I'm gonna get a little bit off topic from jazz, but they're like these guys, like a guy named Gurzo. He's like a mob boss, or like, you know, there's like a guy
the
named
nicknames for all of the oligarchs.
Yeah,
here.
like Lufik Samo oligarch. His name is.
We are ready for an advertisement break.
Why?
An urgent break.
Hey, hold on.
No, I'm
I can
joking.
say the names. Okay, you're just joking. Okay, great, because I'm gonna continue.
We're gonna get in trouble.
Ready for the break.
I thought there's 2 minutes though, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So Lufik Samo is like Sammy the Bra, you know. Or what else was there? There's Nemez Rubo. It's like like Rubo the German, like Bobby the German, you know? And I always think of like Levon Malkhas. We could take his name and just be like, hey, Leo Malch or Leo Mal. You know, like shorten it even shorten it a little further.
That doesn't sound good.
Malch. You know, it sounds like you gotta clear your throat.
Leo Ma.
Malch.
Mama
Leo
of
Ma.
Armenian
Yeah, I like
jazz.
that. That's great. That's Leo Ma. You know, instead of Levon Malkhas.
It sounds.
My favorite is Sammy the Bra.
It sounds
Sammy
like
the
Yo-Yo
Bra.
Ma's cousin or something.
Yeah, Yo-Yo Ma.
Thanks a lot,
Leo
dear guys. We are ready for a break, and we'll come back with the calendar of events for the upcoming week.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. I would never live in America.
Why not? Didn't you enjoy your time there?
Yeah, why not?
It was good, but it wasn't great.
Because you didn't know us when you were there.
Join Ina MK, MasterSteve, and HazvaQT for a great American experience.
Every Saturday on the Great American Weekend.
Hey there, everybody. We're back with the Great American Weekend. I'm here with my main man, MasterSteve, and this lady over here to my right.
Hey there, and indeed, my
Ina
life
MK.
is not the same after I met you guys.
Oh, you know, it's my life has completely changed after this show too, and I hope for all of our listeners out there and our viewers out there that this is also
Hello.
life-changing for you.
And in a positive way.
Yeah, we got to emphasize
In a traumatic way.
We hope
way.
possibilities and abundance are opening for you all by watching our programming.
And if
know,
our
sometimes
show
how
isn't
when-
enough American for you every week, there is the American Corner here in Yerevan, and they have events.
And I'll be reading about the American Corner events in a Southern American accent. So let's jump into our calendar of events, shall we? The Yerevan American Corner every Friday at 4 p.m. We got a debate club with Jim Daly, who's a really nice guy, I've heard. He's very hospitable and very kind. And then every Monday at 3 p.m., Reading Club. If you enjoy a good story and want to expand your vocabulary, as well as practice your listening and speaking skills, join the Yerevan American Corners Reading Club.
Where is that guy from?
I think, where I'm from?
No, I mean the guy that was reading that.
What are you talking about? Okay, I'm still reading the same thing, lady. What are you talking about?
I'm still
what you talking about?
No, I ain't switched nothing, lady. I'm still talking. What you crazy?
He keeps changing the accent.
What are you talking about, Willis?
Am I changing my accent?
A
I
little
think
bit.
I'm keeping the same thing anyway. So I'm keeping my same accent. Join the Yerevan American Corners Reading Club. Intermediate. I'm from the South. I'm from Alabama.
Oh, there you go. That's what
Bama.
Yeah.
And next week we're gonna have to talk about what's going on
in
Alabama.
Oh,
now,
man.
dear listeners, you
listen.
know how Alabama accent sounds like.
Well, I don't know if everybody from Alabama talks like I do, but it's a stereotype that I'm willing to take a risk on.
We'll just go ahead and offend an entire American state,
An
because
entire
there are
state of
49
people,
other
because
ones.
you know what? There's probably some people I can find there that speak like this. I'm sure there are. I've lived in North Carolina
Mr.
for some time.
Alabama,
Hey.
buy and bring
And
back
then-
the Russian guy.
And then on Fridays at 3 p.m.
Oh,
at
we
the
still
American
have-
Corner in
sorry.
Yerevan, there's
that's
the
right.
Teenage Club.
That's right. We got
Yerevan American Corner invites all teenagers to their weekly teenage club to improve their English and learn more about American culture and lifestyle.
Oh, that's such a clean
So
American
if you're
accent.
not a teenager, oops, too bad.
They've got stuff for older people too. I don't know if they have
Elder people.
older people. Not elder people. Well, hey, elder people could go too.
Yeah.
No upper age limit. No upper age limit.
Hey.
Okay, let's move to the movie.
Hey, no
Move to the
upper
movie.
age limits. I like the sound of that.
Move to the movies.
Uh,
Move the movies.
Now, this is for my next performance. These are the movies that are available at Kino Park at Yerevan Mall, said in a Russian accent because most of the English films in Armenia have Russian subtitles, hence the Russian accent. So, the movies in English.
No, it's because HazvaQT loves accents.
That too, I do. Guys, let me let you in on a secret. I really love accents, and I want to show off to you right now. So let me tell you, May 18th to 22nd at 10:30, we have Adventures Endgame, $1 billion movie, best of its kind, with Russian subtitles. 4 p.m. The Hustle, American comedy film. Go and see it. It's American, it's funny, it's good. 5:35 p.m. Pokemon, Detective Pikachu, an urban fantasy. I mean, it's a cartoon that everyone knows about that turned into a video game and everyone loves, and now it's like alternate reality.
Augmented reality, yeah.
Alternate realities. Anyway, it's a
Yikes.
movie that you can go and watch and see Pokemon as a detective. Now, that's at 5:35. This is all at Kino Park Yerevan Mall. 17:55. That's 5:55 p.m. as well. And then at wait, is that 11? 11:15. John, I know. I guess
He's a Russian. He can't read really well.
John Wick.
Anyway.
John Wick, Chapter 3. The trilogy of Keanu Reeves aging slowly in time like a fine wine inside of an action thriller. Go and see it. 11:15 and 5:55 at Kino Park Yerevan Mall. That's it for English movies with a Russian accent.
Thank you. Do you mind if I start the music and you continue it, please?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank
I'm
you.
agreeable. Give and
So-
take like a good jazz.
So, Opera and Ballet State Theater offers May 19th at 7 p.m. Guyana Ballet in 3 acts. May 23rd at 7 p.m. Almast Opera in 2 acts, accompanied by jazz music. May 25th at 7 p.m. La Bohème Ballet in 1 act, music by Charles Aznavour.
Great. And then in the bars and clubs this week, we've got lots of live music to tell you about. Break Project and the Kindergarten will be playing at the venue on May 19th, starting at 7:30. A tribute to Roy Hargrove will be at Club 12 on May 19th. The Double Drum Project with Arthur Grigorian will be at Kami Club on May 20th, starting at 9:30. Hover State Chamber Choir at the National Center of Chamber Music on May 20th. At the National Center of Chamber Music on May 22nd at 7 p.m. There's a rock battle at Mezzo on May 23rd. Arthur
Rock, you mean
Grigorian.
people throw rocks on each other?
No, I think it's a battle of the bands.
Oh, okay.
Battle of the rock bands or something like
That's
that.
very serious.
Arthur
Steve's like,
Grigorian.
yeah, I'm very serious about this. Like it's a battle of the bands. Like, come on, bro.
More jazz. More jazz.
Yeah.
Arthur Grigorian Quintet at Etnoteca on May 24th. Jazz Night with the Armenian State Jazz Orchestra at the Architects Union on May 24th as well. We've got the new quintet at the venue on May 25th.
Wow, we've got plenty of stuff.
I know. This is, I mean, the jazz music scene here in Yerevan and the music scene in general is bigger than, you know, a lot of American cities.
It's true.
So many events,
there ain't this much live music in
in
many. Oh well, okay.
Almost.
Charles Aznavour tribute concert at the Karin Demircian Sports Complex on May 26th at 7 p.m. And that'll be all for the live music this week.
And if you guys would like to visit clubs, you can go to Hugo Bar May 19th through 25th. The program starts at 8:30 p.m. with different DJs, different programs. And also May 25th at 10 p.m. there is the Rise of the Orion techno music event with local and foreign DJs involved at the embassy. Thanks for being with us tonight. Thank you for joining our show.
Thanks, guys.
It is sometimes, you know how to say, it's a growing experience for us. Sometimes I don't get whether it's in a good way or in a bad way, but of course we get the best thing out of it.
I think growing is always good.
Yeah, of course. But stay safe. Have a great end of the weekend.
And that is the great American weekend for this week. And to quote the great Dennis Miller from Saturday Night Live, I am out of here.
Yeah.
Let's get out of here.
We're out of here.
We're done. Bye-bye.